Episode number 10. We are underway. I am PT from Paranormal Trucker. Some people have called me pretty tasty or pretty terrific, and that's pretty cool. Joining me today are my convoy hosts, Snowman and Large Marge.
Hello.
I see they're sporting their new hats.
Yes, we are.
They're
We got
comfortable,
our
aren't they?
paranormal trucker hats on.
Right.
They're comfortable, aren't they?
They're
They are.
very comfortable and
Yeah, they are.
stylish.
Yeah, you don't really when you think of a trucker hat, you really don't think they're that comfortable, but those are kind of comfortable.
These are very
They
comfortable.
are.
Yeah. So anybody who wants one, let me know. Paranormaltrucker@yahoo.com. So what have you guys been into this week? Well, sorry, let's start back. Because we missed last week, this week has been super hectic work-wise, weather-wise, sick-wise, unexpected trip-wise. What have you guys been up to the last 2 weeks?
I've been working like a dog.
Yeah, that's the same thing you say every week. We got to come up with something different.
Okay.
It has been.
People don't buy
Well,
for a second if you work that hard.
Well, I've got a few colorful things I could have said from back when I was younger, but we'd probably get canceled, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, please don't. Especially this week seems to be everyone's getting canceled. So
Yeah.
We went tonight and got our favorite Mexican, and Marge is packing a large margarita to go right now.
Oh boy.
If Mark gets a little silly
So
during
if I
the
get a
show,
little silly,
Yeah. I'm just kind of looking at my face on the video here. You can blindfold me with dental floss. Looks like I've been drinking one of those. I have not, by the way. It's just the way this light is, I guess, blowing around my face. So that's it. Just-
yeah.
what else have we haven't really done too
We haven't
terribly
done
much
anything yet.
yet.
No, shoot.
We've done a lot of stuff around the house, winterizing into winter from summer,
Yeah.
taking air conditioners out and stuff like that.
Covered pool.
Covered the pool. But that's
Well.
about it. Nothing else other than that. Nothing news breaking or newsworthy.
Well, that's okay, I guess. Kind of boring.
Well,
We're all kind of boring. I'm
that's
going
when
to
you get old, Mark.
huh?
Oh, I said your name. I said that's what happens when you get old.
Oh, well, I am going to announce that since next week is Halloween, and of course we are pushing our contest back to the end of the first of the year. We finally did get our first entrance, and I will read that on the air. But also, I want to bring. I want to tell you about the contest that the Spooky Family's got going on that ends on October 31st as well. Send them your creepy stories, your ghost stories. And you will be entered to win their contest, which and I think there's a giveaway of a book, Elvira. Shoot, I had it wrote down and now I've lost it. Hang on, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. But continue, talk amongst yourself.
Well,
So you just mail in a scary story to their website,
Yes, just
to
send
their podcast.
yes, send something to their send your story to their podcast, and that way you can be entered. It said, let's see. Daggone it, I had it wrote down and I've lost that page. So I'm trying to go back through my messages and find this.
well, on another note, I have been emailing people trying to get us an interview, and
Yeah.
I got a response back the other day, and I actually
Oh,
printed
really?
off and frame it. Yeah, it's going to be like on Big Bang Theory where Sheldon goes and harasses, and they get a EPO on him. And he
Oh,
frames
yeah.
it. That's his. He supposedly had one from Stan Lee and Leonard Nimoy and all them.
So you have a
But,
restraining order, is that what you're saying?
But I emailed Nick Pope.
No.
That used to be the oh,
Minister.
yeah, he was he wasn't the Minister of Defense. He worked for the British government.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the Ministry of Defense.
And then did a lot, and now he's real big into the UFO, the cover up, all that stuff. And
We
unfortunately,
love him. He's in all of our shows that we watch on the
Yes.
History Channel all the time.
but unfortunately, he sent an email saying he couldn't. He's just so busy right now. He couldn't do it.
But he was
Which-
nice enough to respond.
But he responded, and I respect that.
Shout out to Nick Pope. That
Exactly.
we love you. We're big fans.
Yeah, definitely. That is very cool.
Yes.
I mean, the people that I've emailed have not even responded. So you're doing better than I am right now.
I've emailed a few people, and I've not got no response. He was the only one that responded, and I thought that was pretty classy.
Very classy.
You know,
It is
Even if
definitely.
it was an automatic response or
yeah,
something, it don't
he at
matter.
least took the time. You know,
That's right.
Okay. I couldn't find it on our messenger, so I just went straight to their Facebook page, which is Elliot Spooky. It's spelled SPOOKEE. It says, "Hey, listeners, don't forget that we are having a contest on the podcast. We need you to send us your scariest true story. Beagle Gertie and I will read from the show and determine who has the scariest story, and that person, as long as you are over 18, will win a copy of Elvira's memoir, Yours Cruelly. The contest ends October 31st at midnight. To enter, please email your story to Elliot@spookyfamilypodcast.com, Gertie@spookyfamilypodcast.com, or Beagle@spookyfamilypodcast.com. You must be 18 to enter. Please include your name, your address, and let us know if we can use your real name on air. And if we can't, then let us know something that we can call you."
I'm going to send one of mine in. One that we were talking about today. One of them.
oh yeah,
And just go ahead and throw this out there. I did not realize our contest was extremely close to his, and I am so sorry, Elliot. That was not the intention.
yeah.
We're not your competition.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
That was not the.
Well, if they listen to his show and listen to our show, there's no reason why you can't get two.
Well, and that's true. But, great minds think alike sometimes.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Before we get too carried away, I want to bring it down for a minute. If you are a believer in a creator, God, whatever your beliefs are, I ask that you stop and please take a moment and throw a prayer up for a dear friend of mine. Or if you aren't a believer, if you would mind sending out some good thoughts and well wishes, who recently had a loss in the family of his immediate family. And if you wouldn't mind, please send up some thoughts, good wishes, well wishes, good thoughts and prayers. I'm sure they would definitely appreciate that.
What's his first name?
Can't tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Let's
okay.
just keep it anonymous.
I was just gonna say it would be easier with prayers, but that's okay.
Yeah.
God will
I
know
know.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's just. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can say his name. Should I say his name?
Well, you could. I don't.
Just his first name. That's all I
Yeah,
wanted.
First name is Tim.
There you go. It could be
Yeah.
Tim anybody, but just it makes it more personal.
Yeah, there you go. So if you wouldn't mind throwing out a prayer for Tim and his family, good thoughts, well wishes, always appreciated. All right,
Good
you guys
God,
ready?
touch Tim.
You guys ready to jump into this?
Yes, let's go.
All right. So I've got a. Do what?
We was born ready.
Okay. So I've got a listener email, and this is also our first entry.
Woo! Praise the room! Praise the room!
Our contest. Now our contest ends on we'll say December 31st at midnight. So just a second or two before New Year's is when our contest will end. And we're not going to do just ghost story. We'll do anything. We'll do UFO, Bigfoot, any kind of nutty, scary, weird, unexplained, paranormal type story that you have. Please send it to the paranormaltrucker@yahoo.com. Message us on our Facebook page. Leave a comment on our YouTube page, or however you want to do it, and get in contact with us, and we can that way we will enter you into the contest, and the listeners will get to hear some more kooky stories besides the ones we've been telling. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Hey, Paranormal Trucker and crew. I hope you all enjoyed my last story about my experience at the Dr. Aaron Wright house. I have another one for you. I was about 25 and my daughter was age 7. My son was age 5, and we moved into an older home in PK. I'm not sure. Marge, Piqua, Ohio. What is that?
Piqua.
Piqua. Moved into a home in Piqua, Ohio. The activity started day one of the move-in. The basement had an old coal trough where I guess they used to use to heat their home back in the day. It was cool because outside there was a small steel door, and it was just big enough for the coal to be shoveled in the basement. Just giving an idea about how old the house was. Well, as I was moving things down the basement, the door shut, and as I got to the bottom of the stairs, I ran back up and tried to open the door, but it couldn't. It was like someone was holding the doorknob, so I couldn't turn it. The harder I tried to open the door, the louder the giggling got. Giggling? Ooh. Oh my God.
Damn. I'd have been out of there.
Yeah, no, that would be it. I thought it was my kids playing around. When I was able to finally get the door open, no one was there. I found my kids upstairs in their room playing and asked why they were playing with the basement door. And they told me they had been up there unpacking the whole time I was in the basement, and said maybe it was the neighbor kids that they were playing with earlier. It struck me odd because the closest kids around were about a block or two up the road, and they were teenagers. So I shook it off, and a few days after staying there, things would be moved around, misplaced, and giggling from time to time. One evening, the sun was going down just in between daylight and dark, and I opened the back door and told my kids that it was getting dark and it was time to get in the house. They said they were playing with their friends and asked for a few more minutes. This time I stood in the door and saw my kids playing in the backyard with a little boy and a little girl. They were around their age, and they looked transparent. It definitely took me by surprise, but I was used to this kind of stuff, but my kids weren't. So I immediately yelled at them to come in. As I did, the two little kids started running with my kids coming towards the house. Then right before they got to the door, they disappeared. My daughter is now 26, and she still remembers that experience. She brings it up from time to time, and my son doesn't remember it. P.S. You all keep up the great work. I really enjoy hearing large Marge and Snowman stories, and I really liked when you talk about the paranormal experiences that superstition truckers have on the road. Keep on trucking. Free water.
Oh, that was fun.
That was
Ooh, that was a good story.
Yeah,
I think if I'd have heard that giggling, I'd been out there.
He signed it Firewater, so I'm not sure if that is that's a Native American term, isn't it?
Could
Kathy?
be firewater.
That's what
they call whiskey.
That's what they call whiskey.
Firewater.
Oh, well, maybe. Okay.
Because it
But
makes
anyhow.
it crazy.
Yeah. But anyhow, no, that is a very good story and very creepy story.
Great story.
But now,
Shout out to him and to thank him for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yes, that
yeah,
was
for
good.
sure. And this is the second one that he's had that he's sent in. So my question is his mind opened up to see this stuff wherever he goes, or is this one of those situations where he himself is putting out energy, and he's being pulled to certain areas or certain houses to live in, he sees that stuff.
Sure. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Well, is anybody else having trouble with gnats this year?
Oh my gosh,
Gnats and
I'm so
flies.
glad you said that.
Oh my
They
God,
are
they're
driving us
crazy.
crazy. I've never had gnats before. And they are
This is insane.
horrible.
Yeah, they are.
I even put something on Facebook the other day. I said, am I the only one having a fly problem? And I had so many comments. All these people were like, we have them in all different parts of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, that's
It's
like
bad.
at the first of the year, in March or whatever, it was ticks. It's been a full 30
Yeah.
ticks off of me. And
Oh yeah, ticks are
I
very
was
bad.
dug in, they were bad. And Ghost went out and I can't remember if we had told you before we had changed Diesel's name to Ghost.
Right.
Even though he's a big black dog, he's got a white patch on the front that looks just like a ghost. So it's his ghost.
Right. It looks like the Oogie Boogie Man from Nightmare Before Christmas is what it looks like.
Yeah. And we
and then we're doing this show, so we were like, that would be a cool name in homage to our show too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and just like a ghost, when it gets dark,
he disappears.
He disappears.
Oh yeah, he's the color of the night. I told you that.
Yes.
And I lost a lighter and got to digging around here. And remember us telling you the story about the lighter flying off the table?
Yes.
And coming back down on that lazy Susan. Well, I found the lighter. I don't know if you can see it or not. That's it.
Yeah, coffin shaped, got a skull on
the
it.
coffin shaped lighter with a skull on it.
Oh, that's appropriate.
It's very appropriate.
That's the one that launched up in the air about 4 feet and came right back down.
Wow.
And we just
landed in the same spot.
Landed in the same spot, and both of us just kind of looked at. Did you see that? Yeah. Then we just kept eating the coffin.
We just ignored it.
Yeah.
There's so many weird things that happens that we don't even pay attention to them anymore. We just laugh at them.
Oh, I'll tell you a good story on your brother.
Okay.
I don't know. He was younger. He was probably 9, somewhere around 9 or something. And
It's gonna be a long. Is this gonna be a long story? Is this gonna be a long story?
No. It's not real long.
We'll make it long. I'm gonna enjoy myself here real quick.
Okay. Well, anyway, he started.
Cheers.
All of a sudden, coming in and I'm sick. You care if I sleep with you? And we let him get after about a week, him doing that every night. I said, there's something wrong with him, and your mom said, no. Said you watch all these shows about UFOs and aliens and all that stuff. And he's so I got him out and asked him. I said, Zach, is that why you're coming in there? You're getting scared. You think about the UFOs and aliens. He goes, yeah. And I said, well, why does that bother you? I said, there's no proof of that. I said, why don't ghosts bother you? He goes, that ain't nobody sees ghosts anymore.
Oh, that's old school.
That's old school.
That's
ain't
old school.
Nobody sees ghosts anymore.
Well, now let me ask you: was that before or after the new section of the house was built?
That was during the new section of the house after we moved in.
I know he told me a story that happened to him a couple times. That he used to sleep with his window open, and he would see something come in the window and go down his throat and hold him there,
Really?
and then it would leave right back out the window.
Well, he might have been abducted.
It could have, very well could have.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is, next week, of course, is Halloween, and we are not going to be able to get together like we thought we were. So the following week, we are going to get together, correct?
Yes.
And we will have several other people around, correct?
Yes.
So we are thinking of doing, and by we, I just kind of come up with this idea just now. So you let me know what you think. What if we did a podcast with all of those folks there, with my brother, my sister, and whoever else is there, whoever else doesn't care to be on camera, and we discuss, whatever the topics are. I mean, it could be anything.
That would be so awesome.
That would be great.
We get everybody an opportunity to tell a ghost story. That would be fun.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
Seen it.
Or UFO, that's right.
Or Bigfoot.
Or Bigfoot. Any kind of unusual story. That'd be fun.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have a story that you would like us to, or a topic that you would like us to research for our big, we'll call it our family union meeting, for the first weekend of November, please send it in to paranormaltrucker@yahoo.com, or our Facebook page, or comment on the YouTube page on this video, and we will.
Our belated Halloween party.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there was someone a couple weeks ago. We talked about the juvenile Bigfoot photo that you were talking about, Snowman.
Yes.
someone commented on the video and wanted to know if we had a picture of the juvenile or where he could find that.
He could find it on YouTube. Look up
Juvenile.
Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Survivor Man Bigfoot. That Les Stroud, after he quit doing the series Survivor Man, he did a series of where he would go out and investigate Bigfoot, with some of these investigators, and and he is a skeptic, but he goes out with these guys that are true believers, and it's so you kind of get both sides of it a little bit, and it's really interesting.
Oh yeah. Well, so all right, so he can look it up by Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Okay, that'll be awesome. So I'm going to leave this up to you guys. You two, you all have homework to reach out to the other two, the kids, and let them know what our plan is. We'll be doing a podcast. If they want to dress up, that's cool. We can all dress up if we want.
I'm dressing up.
I probably won't be dressed up, but I might. Who knows?
We will down you and dress you up. Then.
That's right. You better dress up.
I'm gonna go as the paranormal trucker.
No, everybody knows you as that.
Oh, okay.
That's racist.
Well, speaking of that, speaking of racist, have you seen?
I opened a can of worms.
Yeah, you sure have. Well, hopefully this will be a short topic.
Hopefully, Mike. Short.
This week, Dave Chappelle has been canceled. Has anybody seen that?
Dave Chappelle. Did they finally cancel it?
I think so. I think that's what's happening.
We watched it the other night.
We watched it.
The thing is, of course, it's not on racism. It's about the transgender.
Right.
And the statement released from Netflix when a small group of transgender people walked out until they pulled it off the Netflix. I'm not sure if they still have it up or not, but they said they were afraid for their lives or something like that. They were afraid that that they were people who just wanted to live, and that they were protesting because of people who don't want them to live. And that's not true. I don't know a single person. I don't know a single group that has took up arms against trans people. Is that a thing?
No. It's in their head.
So.
It's in their head. Is what it is.
I didn't think so.
Just like racism.
Have you seen the show?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, he told a story. I mean, I watched it and was trying to figure out why they're all pissed off, and I couldn't figure it out. There's nothing in there. But he told a story at the end that he met a transgender and a comedian and wanted them, and had them open his show. Yeah. And they became friends, and all that. Well, after one of Dave Chappelle's shows, they started going on about him and everything else, and this guy come to his defense on Twitter and just said, it's just comedy and blah blah blah. Basically he's not a hateful person. He doesn't dislike transgender people or gays or whatever. And they started on, bombarding this guy with all this hate stuff that it got to the point and he jumped off the building and killed himself.
You're kidding?
I was sitting there thinking,
it was sad.
That was sad. Me personally, I don't agree with it, but you know what? As long as they don't bother me, I don't care.
Listen, the thing is, it's not for you to agree with. It's not for you to understand. It's not about.
It's not for us to judge.
Exactly.
There's one judge.
It's not for anyone. It's not for anyone to determine it's right or wrong.
I don't want them pissing and whining and moaning to get free shit, and to have everybody bend over to their. To me, and I'm sorry, and I'm probably going to get some bad hate mail for this, but it's offensive. In my eyes, it's offensive, and I'm sorry, it just is. And I don't want to watch it on TV. I don't want to try to be entertained by it. It's not something that I feel comfortable around. And I'm not homophobic either.
But you
Well,
know what?
I'm 58. That's my problem. I was
the
born in
thing
a
is,
different generation.
the thing is, nobody cares what anyone else does as long as they're not hurting anyone, not causing property damage or anything like that. You are welcome to live your life however you want, choose to live your life, but
Exactly right.
to an extent,
Keep it out of my life.
you
Yeah.
cannot
And
expect the world. You cannot expect the world to change because you feel a certain way. Life doesn't work that way. I'm
No.
sorry, it
And,
does
and
not.
here's another thing. Everybody has an opinion. It's
Yeah,
like an asshole. Everybody has one.
That's right.
Doesn't matter if my opinion agrees with your opinion. It doesn't matter. You have an opinion, and I respect that. Just for me, I don't want it in my face.
Yeah. And you know, and that's another thing, you know, the Dave Chappelle show, I've seen some of his other concerts and things like that. And this was not about laughs. This was about, you know, explaining that he's not that type of person. You know,
but
he's
his biggest thing is going against cancel culture, and right now that seems to be, if you don't agree, it doesn't matter if you disagree or anything like that. If you don't think the same way that a certain group of people do, you're silenced. We've
yes.
seen that. We've seen that
know,
with the
That happens. That's happening right now with a lot of the ethnic groups, you know, and it's just like, and it's like I told you when you were, you know, somebody wasn't going. I said, you say something about it and keep complaining about it because the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's all it is, you know, is they whine enough, and you know, you got your media that are all up in arms about putting these stories out, and they'll run them into the ground.
No, they're no, that's not it. They're not up in arms about running anything to the ground.
No. What I'm saying is they see that as rating. That is rating. That is money coming in for them. Not I'm talking about the news media. I'm talking about the news media, not just calm down.
I'm not. I'm trying to get my point out there is what I'm trying to do. I'm saying if you have 24-hour news coverage agencies that are starving for anything, and they will pick something and run it into the ground, like you said, but they pick on these little things that doesn't mean a damn thing in the scheme of things. Because I'll tell you what, I can't think of a single law or anything that forbids people from living their lives. I don't know of anything.
No. Well, you can't get out and shoot somebody. That's against the law.
Well, no, I mean, that's what I mean. Well, yeah, that's the law. Forbidden.
I have an ex-husband.
You can't go out and kill someone. You know.
I have an ex-husband that proves that point.
See, but you know, and especially since I had the stroke, and you know, back a few years ago, I was a little high strung. I would let shit build up and build up and build up, and then when it went off, it was bad.
Right.
You know, and I since that stroke, I've changed the way I look at things. It don't matter. I don't care. You know, I'll let it roll off my back. I'm just going to try to enjoy the time I've got. Some of this stuff just pisses me off. That, you know, just the things that have been going on for the last year, and that has just drives me nuts. And I'm trying to avoid from saying anything, but you know.
Well, and like I said, it's not the point of this conversation wasn't about to.
Mm-hmm.
The point of this conversation wasn't to, you know, shit on any particular group.
No.
This conversation was
it was just to voice different opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
Different outlooks.
The point of this conversation was to bring awareness that you have a comedian who was wildly successful in the 90s and early 2000s that has been canceled because all of a sudden now his material is found to be offensive, which you can't say 10 years ago was offensive because 10 years ago we didn't have this cancel culture crap.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you look at a couple of movies.
Look at all of the celebrities that have been canceled.
Oh gosh, yeah. But what I'm saying is, you look at a couple of movies that were made back in the 70s and 80s, there's no way. Blazing Saddles, there's no way in hell they could make that movie today and make
No.
it.
One of the greatest movies ever.
And it was hilarious. You know, but nobody.
To be honest with you, I'm surprised that it's still allowed to be shown. We're
they cut
slowly,
so much out of it. It's not even.
we're slowly turning into a police state where they police everything that we see or talk about, or
and they're making everybody be comfortable with it.
You know, that was like, you know, did you read 1984?
Yeah.
Watched everything. They even watched your facial expressions, and if you didn't make the right facial expressions, somebody said something, you were SOL. You know, they were gonna disappear you or kill you or something.
Well, you know, that's I mean that's an extreme, but it's kind of,
it's,
you know, it rings true to a certain situation or a certain perspective, you know. Okay, so I have a trucker story, and then we can continue our conversation on Dr. Michael Salla's book, his first book, The Insiders Reveal Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances, if you'd like.
That would be fun.
Okay, so what I've got here is the Phantom Truck of Clinton Road. The legend of the Phantom Black pickup truck, which is said to patrol Clinton Road during the darkest hours, has been an infamous presence in our town for at least 30 years. According to the story, a man named Giles Jones once lived here, but in a farmhouse smack in the middle of nowhere of an otherwise abandoned rural area. He had maintained a few crop fields, nothing expensive, but enough to keep a steady income. The few people that who had actually engaged in conversation with Giles described him as a cruel and hate-filled man one whom also valued his privacy and was infamous for wielding a shotgun and chasing off anyone who came close to his property. He would often follow trespassing motorists in his black pickup truck for as long as it took them to get back into town before he turned around and headed back home. Clinton Road was a long, unpaved stretch that passed right by Giles' house and into the woods, where the road didn't end so much as it eventually narrowed into an impassable trail. It was because of this dead end that Giles felt Clinton Road belonged to him, and openly warned should he ever spot a vehicle on the road heading in that direction of his home, he would assume it contained a band of trespassers out to do harm to him or his property. True to his word, several townsfolk described being chased down by Giles in their own cars after either having driven down Clinton Road innocently or to purposely rile the old man. Giles lived in a ramshackle farmhouse for close to 30 years before suffering a mortal heart attack one morning while working in his fields. Having no family, Giles's home, surrounding lands, and even his black pickup truck sat abandoned for many years, growing moldy, barren, and rusty. Ownership of the property eventually reverted to the state, but they appeared to have no interest in doing anything with it, and that's when the legend began, after Giles' death. They say that if you drive down Clinton Road during the darkest hours of the night and honk your horn 3 times, Giles will come chasing you down in his black pickup truck and fire his shotgun out the window. A few people in town, mainly kids, claim to have experienced this phenomenon for themselves, but no one ever gave them any serious consideration. They were just kids after all. It was later reported and verified by several witnesses that a group of rowdy teens led by a local troublemaker, Roger Kavitz, entered the Dunes cantina and loudly discussed amongst each other the intention not only to drive down Clinton Road and honk their horn, but to spray paint their initials on Giles's abandoned black truck as well. The bartender at the Dunes Cantina verified this occurrence, even going as far to warn Roger and his cohorts to leave it alone. Roger dismissed the bartender's warning, and the teens left the bar. Jim Ford, a resident of Clinton Road, his house is situated in the populated area of town, about 2 miles away from Giles's former homestead, described the night that Kavitz and his friends were found in their car, which, from the look of it, had been in a terrible crash. The sounds of distant gunfire had awoken Jim from his sleep, and he had stepped out on his front porch just in time to witness Roger Kavitz's bright red Firebird speed down the road, which was being pursued by a black pickup truck. Jim admitted for a second that he had just woken up and his eyes were hazy, but he remembered seeing white initials spray painted onto the side of the black pickup, and that the paint must have still been wet as it began to drip down in little rivers. The two vehicles vanished into the darkness, and Jim went to ring the sheriff about what he had witnessed, and something about the scene had not set right with him. Hours later, Roger Kavitz and his friends were found dead in Roger's bright red Firebird. Strangely, the car had not run off the road or into a tree. Instead, it was found right smack in the middle of Clinton Road, smashed in on every side. The boys' bodies had been so chewed up and pulverized inside the car that bits of their flesh, bone, and blood had sprayed all over the other boys' bodies. At Jim's insistence, the sheriff drove up to Giles's property to look around for anything suspicious. The sheriff spotted Giles's old truck sitting in the usual spot. In fact, the truck had been sitting there for so long that tall grass and weeds had breached the rotten bottom of the truck's floor and were nearly touching the roof. The sheriff was nearly ready to discount Jim's story, seeing as how the truck clearly hadn't moved in years, when he saw fresh white spray paint all over the truck's rusted metal. The initials of the boys found dead in the car. More paint was found on the truck's front bumper, but it wasn't white spray paint. It wasn't wet, and it wasn't wet. It was bright red, and it had been caked on the front bumper through heavy force. It was the same color as Roger Kavitz's Firebird. The cause of the crash and the subsequent deaths of the boys were never solved, and most townsfolk won't even speak of the incident, but they will tell you one thing: when he was alive, Giles Jones was not a man to be trifled with. It would seem in death this also remained true, and Clinton Road was to remain his and his alone.
Where was that at?
That's Clinton Road. I'm thinking that's Clinton Road, New Jersey. I think we've talked about that one before, but I don't think we talked about the story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's pretty, like,
that was a good one.
If they wind
that
up,
is a good one. Do I know?
I said, I wonder if it's like they wound up like the werewolf and vampire stories. You know, if they don't die, they become the Walking Dead, either become another vampire or they're have to walk the earth until the bloodline is broken on the werewolf.
Could be.
You know, that's kind of, you think about that. If they got killed by a ghost,
Right.
Are they going to have to
walk the earth
until, you know, he either gives it up or, you know, in the time, whatever comes first.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it sounded like it was a pretty gruesome death. Also, I mean, that energy would have to be imprinted on whatever's around, you know.
Oh yeah.
No, that was a great story.
No, that was
I think that was a good story
for the Halloween season. That was a good one.
All right, so let's continue our conversation. For Dr. Michael Salla's Insiders Reveal Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances. Snowman, you want to get started with that?
Well, you know, like we said before, he was writing the book on Corey Good, which was supposed to be a member of the Secret Space.
Yeah.
Served for 20 years. They age regressing, wiped his memory, and then put him back where he left back in the 80s. And you know, so he gains his memories back, and he comes out with all this stuff that he had experienced while he was in the service. And he was had like a 6-figure job, and you know, lost his job, lost everything to get this stuff, you know, out into the public. Now,
and it's important to say that he didn't start getting his memories back until that 20 years had completely passed.
Right. And he, you know, and I've seen interviews with him, and you know, like I said, some of that stuff I could probably see happen.
Yeah.
And then some of it, you know, I don't know, you know, but I take it with a grain of salt. It's a very interesting book, and it is worth reading or listening to on Audible. You know, it was well produced. But just the facts that they present in this, and they, they go from different sources, and that aren't connected, but they're corroborating each other's stories. And
Yeah.
that's what I found interesting about the whole thing.
Well, and you have 3 different whistleblowers, 2 from the same timeline but didn't know each other, and one from an earlier timeline, and they all 3 corroborated their stories. They all 3 told fairly closely the same details.
Yeah, and and it also mentions William Tompkins, which is basically he designed the ships for the Secret Space Force or Solar Warden that Corey Good was supposed to serve with. And and a lot of the stuff, and they had, according to the book, they had never met. And but the stuff that they had talked about kind of corroborated each other's story again. It's just really interesting book.
Oh yeah, and I've got a few talking points here I want to kind of talk about. So the moon is kind of split up into sections. It's for different species and the different space forces. The entire moon, from what I can gather, is occupied.
Yes.
And different species or different and different space programs all claim property on the moon for their various operations or whatever. Not only that, but there is a Lunar Operations Command, the LOC, that he references a few times, which is where apparently once you get drafted, you go do your paperwork there. He talked about that on several occasions. But here's kind of something I was talking about a while back. The money magic slave system, you can pretty much tell what that is, but we talk about the technologies that could free us from needing to have a monetary system that govern our everyday lives. And if you don't think that you're a slave to money, think about it this way. In the last 10 months since the election, gas prices have rose, 42%, something like that.
Yes.
Something like that.
But well, that really doesn't affect anyone, does it? Well, it kind of does. Gasoline has risen, which also means that diesel has risen. Well, why do you care about diesel? You drive a gasoline car. Diesel is a byproduct of gasoline. They get diesel by making the gasoline for your car. Well, what does diesel fuel? Cargo ships, trains, tractor trailers. All of these things are your shipping goods. So now you have something that is literally a byproduct of gasoline. It's more expensive than gasoline, even though they get it, regardless if they use it or not, by refining your gasoline. It's more expensive than gasoline because we have to have it to transport our goods. Now, what's happened over the last little bit? Price of goods have started going up. Your groceries, your clothing, everything, steel, everything that's transported by a large vehicle has started to go up. Now, you don't think that you're a slave to that system until you start looking at the back channels and everything that affects. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
You guys are kind of staring at me like, oh, this guy.
No, you froze up.
You froze up a couple times.
You're lagging.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a bad internet connection tonight. But that's the stuff that infuriates me. Is yes, you got to manufacture gasoline for everyday passenger vehicles. I understand that. Diesel fuel is literally a byproduct. That's the stuff that nobody wants. That nobody wanted at the time. And it used to be cheaper than gasoline. If anybody remembers, about 30 years ago, it was cheaper than gasoline. But because we need it for our shipping uses, it's of course skyrocketing up, and for no reason other than they want to make money.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big reason. One of the big reasons is that Biden went in there and shut down all of our natural fuel.
Yeah.
Right.
And one 10 sweep the very first day, and made us not energy efficient,
independent.
anymore.
Right.
So that's a lot of it.
Well, yeah, and that's you're exactly right. But what I'm saying is it's the diesel fuel. Yeah, I'm trying to. I guess I'm trying to say that the money magic slave system makes sense. That's what they call it, is a money magic slave system. That we are a slave to our own economies, and yes, of course, we want our economy to. God, you son of a bitch! Sorry, I found one.
What the hell?
That
What
was
was that? You're lagging, and then
that
all
was
of a
a-
sudden we just seen you smacking.
that was a gnat. I've
These gnats.
been fighting that gnat since I got home. But
Gnats are horrible.
yeah. So, but the process, the thinking is that yes, you may not think that you're a slave to the money system, but you are. You 100% are. No, and the slightest little change, fuel raises. That's going to raise your cost of living by whatever percentage the fuel is going to raise.
Well,
and people don't.
It's going to be more than that, because your fuel. How many people do you know that live close to their work? Most people probably drive 30 minutes or more.
Yeah, every bit of it.
And so all of a sudden now they're paying $1 more on the gallon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now, bacon and egg, milk, bread, everything has gone up because it costs more to get it there.
Yeah.
If they can get the raw materials
Right.
to make whatever they got to make.
This summer, I couldn't find any chemicals to my pool.
Yeah, that's
nowhere.
Yeah,
Walmart, nobody had pool chemicals.
That's what it is. It's and that is just kind of the beginning. Like it could get a lot worse if we're not careful and we don't bring in these idiots that are putting all this shit on us. Again, we're not a political show, so let's not get into that. But my point is, yes, we are a slave to money, and they control everything that we do. Secrets don't make friends over there.
I'll be right back. Yes.
But they talk about species also. They're talking about several species. They even talk about a species that they're, and I thought this was interesting, that they're mainly interested in social justice. Is that correct? Do you remember reading that?
No, I don't remember social justice. They're wanting. They mentioned a couple of species that, like the Nordics and Spear Builder.
Spear Builder Alliances, or Spear Being Alliance.
That the supposedly the cosmic energy is more good. And they're wanting us to drop all this petty shit and worry about our neighbors, worry about ourselves.
Right. And maybe that's where I got the social justice at. And
not and take responsibility for yourself. Don't be getting out there and being a sorry ass and just going out and stealing what you want or waiting on somebody or the government to provide it for you. Change it yourself.
Well, and maybe that's where I got the social justice part at, where they were talking about equal rights for everyone, and that's what they were trying to impress on the human race, is that we're much bigger than what we think we are. We need to get along, kind of thing.
Right.
But also talk about certain species and humans that are pushing for a release. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't start putting two and two together until you and I had a conversation this week, because you are on the second book and you're kind of far ahead of me. But
I just finished the third book. And
okay, so you're 2 books ahead of me.
I'm a long way ahead of you.
All right.
And now I'm trying to make sure I don't get them confused, because there's a lot of information. The first 2 books were fantastic. The third book was a lot of information, but it was, really didn't get really interesting till about halfway through, and then he brought up some other stuff that are coming up. We'll talk about that later, but it was
right. But no, what I was kind of getting at there is, to kind of get us back on track is that you know, and I didn't think about this till you and I started having that conversation, but they hated Trump and everything in that administration, and supposedly he was supposed to release and be the disclosure, wasn't he?
Well, and that's what and it was the Navy actually, if you'll look back or read back into it, was kind of pushing for that disclosure.
Yes.
And they were hoping Trump, along with the help of Vladimir Putin, to come out with all that shit that both countries have had over the years.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then, you know, COVID hit, everything went south. You know, who knows if he got reelected, that could possibly have happened.
Right.
But
Well,
you also have these other, like the corporate conglomerate that has their own space force, and the Nazis then that are allied with the reptilian race.
well, and that's kind of what. Yeah, that's kind of the point, was that they wanted to kind of have disclosure, and that would bring an end to the conglomerate, because they're greedy. They're trying to get technology, and they're the ones that they have the money here on Earth, and they're controlling these large corporations and things like that. So if we didn't have to spend money on gas or electricity or things like that, we would no longer be slaves. They would no longer have the power. And again, we talk about one world governments, but it sounds like it's these space forces that are kind of controlling what happens down here.
Well, you know, it was brought up in the book that, you know, the Nazis' Third Reich, after Hitler got them into the war, they didn't want to be in the war.
Right.
They were wanting Hitler to bring, you know, but he's a little out there, so he starts this war and runs Germany into the ground.
Yeah.
And after they had transferred all their stuff to Antarctica and Argentina and places like that, they figured out to keep to start the Fourth Reich was it wouldn't be based in a country. It would be based everywhere. So they infiltrated all these businesses, all these companies that design, created things, whatever, and are pushing us in one direction.
Yeah, they're not gone.
They're not. They're not.
They're very, 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 very up and going.
And so, you know, we've talked about it in several. We owe the modern world essentially to what came out of World War II, and essentially to the Nazis. Again, Nazis are bad, but they did come up with some crazy good stuff.
Yes, and they also, following along the lines of the secret space program, had the first one.
Listen, if Hitler hadn't went off the rails and went completely nuts, we'd all be speaking German right now.
Oh, sure.
He had the money, he had the army, he had the intelligence, he had the knowledge. He just got nuts and went crazy at the end.
I kind of think he was nuts all along.
Well, I agree. Yeah, he was kind of but he got really bad toward the end.
Oh yeah. Well, that's another thing. You know, what lost the war for him? First off, you know, he stops before he knocks off Britain. Okay, so now the Allies have a place to launch their attacks from. But he stops there and then picks a fight with Russians.
Right.
You know, and so now he's fighting on two fronts.
And that's a fight he couldn't win.
And you can't win that. I'm sorry. You know,
the big thing is they tactically weren't ready for the Russian winter.
No.
And they froze to death and died.
And when the Russians saw what was coming, and they actually dismantled their factories and sent them to Siberia. So while all this is going on, and
they even told Germany, Russia's got 9 million people or whatever, 9 million soldiers in Russia and Germany's like, nah, it's no big deal. We can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it.
And you know, they what did them in was they got outproduced.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were so bent on finding the newest, biggest weapon Hitler was.
Yeah.
That you could, you know, that's not how you do things. You're taking away like probably one of the best tanks of World War II is that Panzer V. They call it the Panther.
Yeah.
And that one and the Russian T-34, probably the best tanks. They both of them used sloped armor. You know, they had a decent sized gun on both of them, but you could have made those in numbers instead of just a few. You know,
well, yeah,
they had one tank, and that's all they produced. United States, we had for a while before we come up with the Sherman, but they were easy produced, and we produced thousands and thousands of them.
And that's what I was going to say. We got it to where they were 2 to 1 to Germans.
Tiger tanks, but you overwhelm them in numbers, and
right.
That's you know, that's what lost it to me. You know, if they would have just when they first did the Blitz, went in through Poland and all that, most of their military was not tanks. They were little tanks that had machine guns in it, or maybe a small cannon. You know, nothing major.
Yeah.
And all their convoys and supply chains were horse-drawn wagons. They didn't have motorized vehicles. This was in 1939.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, that was in 38. And they didn't have all that stuff. It just progressed, you know, as the war went on. But when you find something good, that's where you need to stop and work on it. And that's what we did. We just outproduced. We outdid their bombers. We outdid their
Everything.
Their army. Now, the only thing we didn't outdo them on were their submarines. And
their space intelligence.
And they kicked a lot of ass with those submarines. We finally figured out how to fight them.
Sure.
And
but yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, but you're right. I mean, he was so bent on finding the newest, best technology. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where a lot of our modern world come from, especially space, like Marge says, especially the space stuff. And it almost makes you wonder.
Braun was one of the big things that we got from World War II from the Germans, and he came over and he helped us do the atom bomb.
No, he helped us do the space Apollo and all that.
But wasn't he involved in the?
No,
he wasn't involved in that.
He wasn't involved in that.
I thought he was.
No, he came over after.
He came over after, but he was the one. You know, from a child, he loved rocketry. You know, he wanted to get something to fly into space, right. And that V2, the rocket that they, you know, it would just go up and down, but it actually reached space. They were, the first country to put things in space.
According to the book. According to the book,
they had stuff going into space long before that.
Yeah, according to the book, they had essentially the first time they landed. Essentially, they landed on the moon late 20s, early 30s, and they started digging and they started building a base right away.
And if what the book says that they had allied themselves with the reptilians, which were more belligerent, more aggressive. You know, they weren't looking at getting along; they were looking at taking over.
Domination. Yeah.
I could see, them giving them enough knowledge for them to start that.
Sure.
But something else I thought about, and this, they don't mention anything about having gravity on the moon equal to Earth.
Right.
The moon's gravity is 1/6 of what the Earth is. So, if they're on the moon, how do they? Oh, you doing a cheer? What are you doing there?
No, I just did nothing than that. That's Nat.
Oh, okay.
You and the
I
gnat.
don't know. I just saw you clap.
gnat again.
You were freezing up. It just all of a sudden I saw your hands up and heard a big clap. I went, what the
He's celebrating.
Yeah.
But anyway,
It's October.
and that's another thing, and if there is a secret space force, what are they doing about gravity?
Right.
Because the people that are serving on it, if they haven't figured something out about that, they're going to be like a piece of jelly when they come back.
Well, no, I mean, and that's the thing. The book really didn't cover gravity. However, when they were talking about when they went to the Lunar Operations Command, there were apparently a lot of cubicles there with paperwork that these guys had to sign. So there had to be gravity. Otherwise, I mean, there'd be confetti floating around, right?
Well, no, the moon has gravity. It's just 1/6 of what's on Earth.
Right.
So it can hold a piece of paper.
The paper's not going to float around. It's going to hit the ground. It just may take it a little longer to get there. And and if you'll actually watch, they actually dropped a feather and a hammer on the moon.
Yeah, I seen that.
At the same time.
Yeah, I seen that.
The only reason that doesn't happen here is you have air.
Right.
And so they, the air is going to react with the feather and create lift, and it's not going to hit the ground at the same time.
Right. Well, and but
that's
I mean,
very interesting, Snowman.
They would have to come up with something, because I mean, you wouldn't be able to run around or doing anything.
After a few weeks or a month on the moon, you're not having to work as hard, so your muscles going to start going away, and it also affects the bone density. I guess the calcium leaves the bones or whatever.
Well, nobody wants that.
No.
We get that enough here in the United States.
Yeah. Especially when you get an old woman.
Well, let me tell you something. 90% of me has went south. It's bullshit. I don't need anything else.
Well, now, so
they
the same thing. Built these anti-gravity ships in the 20s and 30s that took them to the moon. So theoretically, they could have used the engines on the ship, correct, to create a gravity field.
There again, I don't know. They didn't discuss that. I just thought about that. Listening to those books, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, oh, it's pretty interesting, but they're not solving some of the problem, or they're not answering the question that I have. Because you look at these guys that stay on the space station. Have you ever noticed they've been up there for 6 months or whatever, and they come back, and there's 3 or 4 guys out there, the Russians, there for a long time, and they were coming back in Russian spacecraft and leaving and going in Russian spacecraft.
Yeah.
And when they would touch down, those 3 or 4 guys in there having to lift these guys out and carry them over there, because they couldn't walk. There was no gravity to hold, put any kind of pressure on them.
Gosh, but I bet they didn't have no back pain till they got back.
No what now?
I bet they didn't have no back pain till they got back. Everything just kind of floating apart.
Yeah, and you look at that's what I'm saying. For me, that would have kind of been the big thing. If they don't have some way of creating some kind of gravity, to keep them to where they're actually exerting themselves to move around, they're going to lose all that stuff. And at the point, at the end of his 20 years, he comes back, he's in a wheelchair, or is he walking around? What's going on? I know they said
in a wheelchair.
I know
It'll be a blob.
Well, no, I mean they say that
you guys being in this space force, if they're out in space, if they haven't addressed that problem, they're going to come back and be just a lump of jelly.
I would imagine
probiotics.
I would imagine
and Genuix, or what's that one that gives you a hard on?
Oh, Viagra.
No, Viagra, but what's the other one that big football player?
Nugenics.
He says, and the women will like it too. So you get a big wiener hard on, I guess. You can do that in Mars. can do that in Mars. Oh my God, you are so red right now. You look like the Mars.
There
You
are
look like
kids.
Mars.
There are kids that listen to this.
Well, we told you there was a margarita involved during this show, so
There was a margarita involved.
we didn't know what kind of where we go. I was supposed to stop her, but I
Hey,
couldn't.
look, you two get me every week with your political stuff, and I just kind of go into a
She
snooze
zones out.
fest until you guys are done with your political rest. So I'm allowed to have my outburst every
Well,
once in a
I'll tell you
while.
what, when we ever
Yeah,
get
yeah,
to
you
the
are.
week after Thanksgiving, we're going to outlaw the Wapatuya this time.
No Wapatuya. None.
Well,
For anybody that doesn't know what Wapatuya is, if anybody asks you to go to a party and there's Wapatuya, say no.
Well, actually, don't say no. You just got to show a little restraint.
No, you can't go because it
It's,
tastes like ice cold lemonade. And you don't know it, but it's loaded with liquor.
I watched the guys make it. So yeah, I did not drink that.
oh, he went through 3 gallons of life.
I wish.
He had to roll him up to get on the couch.
Wapatuya. That's a fun party thing.
It is fun. It's a good drink.
Well, no, they have obviously addressed the situation because they say as soon as they came back, I mean, that one guy even went and finished his 6 years in the Navy in the service, like immediately after he came back. So
Yeah,
there would have to be.
but I mean, he didn't answer the question for me.
Well, why don't you know what? Why don't you reach out to Corey Good and let's get him on here and let's ask him.
Then that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, we got questions, Corey Good. Some
I will reach
bullshit.
out to him.
You can tell nothing about no damn gravity. We know you need it. Where's it at?
Yeah. But, a lot of the stuff, it's just like Bob Lazar. He was talking about these scanner devices and things like that they used, and nobody knew about them until
Sure.
a couple of years ago, and found out he might not have been alive after all.
Yeah.
They didn't have them.
Well, and we talked about because I know in listening to the first part of the book, when we talked about how the secret space programs sounded eerily similar to Star Trek, and what'd you find out in the next book, which we probably shouldn't tell out.
That was in the next book. Oh gosh, what was that? There was an admiral that was in the know on all this stuff. Okay, and his son was a Hollywood producer.
Yeah.
And did the Outer Limits. Well, he was good friends with Gene Larson that did Battlestar Galactica,
Uh-huh.
and now I went blank. The stroke's kicking in.
Gene Roddenberry.
Yes, thank you,
Gene
Gene
Roddenberry.
Roddenberry. And both of those shows he gave them the ideals for the shows, but then didn't want any of the credit. So, but they were both like kind of soft disclosures of things that are out there or things, because according to the book, there is an actual alien AI that is trying to take over everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's what the Battlestar Galactica was. They were fighting robots. And
What does AI stand for?
artificial
Intelligence.
Thank you.
And then Star Trek was, it was like we'll fight if we have to, but our mission is to go out and explore. And
right. Which very similar to Solar Warden.
Exactly. Exactly.
We have lost her. Look at her. She is out of here.
Yeah, she's lost. She hasn't heard the book. I haven't downloaded to let her listen to it yet.
I know. I just sit over here and listen to you guys. You're so funny.
She's out. She's done. She's gone. She walked. She walked now.
No, I'm not. You guys just make me gone. Oh,
well,
Lord.
we have carried on for a while. Two other things real quick to touch on. supposedly the new arrival of the Sphere Alliance of Being, I think was like 2013. And they have quarantined our solar system. Or no, they haven't quarantined it, have they? They have?
No, they didn't quarantine it, but they put a shield around it to prevent supposedly anything from coming through or anything from going out.
Right.
And,
Okay.
so the extraterrestrial races that are here can't leave.
They're stuck here.
They're stuck here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's a little aggravating, I'm sure.
now they also said that it was coming to an end,
Yeah.
and they are, basically they had put a shield up around this solar system, to keep influences in and out, but to shield it from the cosmic rays.
Yeah.
Because they say that shield is just about the end of its life. And
Right.
once that goes, then cosmic rays, will be bombarded by them again. And they're also worried about, what's it going to do to the sun, or what's it going to do to us.
Well, and here's the thing, though. I mean, that they're a relatively new arrival, so weren't we just fine before?
Well, as far as we know, we were.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe it's, just like everything else is in a cycle. Maybe that stuff comes around and they're just trying to delay that cycle a little bit for us to, try to do whatever we need to do to be ready for when that happens.
Sure. And then they were also talking about ancient human breakaway civilizations. So I'm thinking, when I was hearing that, I was thinking the city of Atlantis, the lost civilization there. But they also talked about Mayans and Egyptians that also possibly had technology that there were also possibly breakaway civilizations.
Right. And and the Nazis, when they moved to Antarctica, supposedly they have bases there, and place on the moon. And,
Yeah.
And they're not they're living under their own rules.
Right.
They're not living under a country's rules, any country's rules. They're doing what they want to do.
Exactly. Okay. Well, we went a little long, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the night. This is episode 10. We've talked about, we continued our conversation, Dr. Michael Salla's book, Insiders Reveal Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances. It's a great book. I just finished it this week. I'm going to try to get the next one here soon. Start that. I think there's a total of 6 books. Is that correct? 5 books?
I think so. 6
so
books.
This is fascinating to us. So I mean, we're going to keep talking about it for a little bit. Don't forget to enter the Spooky Families contest, and you can reach out to them. Send them at their send them your scary stories, ghost stories, whatever. Do it by midnight on October 31st, and they will declare you a winner or not. Also, please go give my friends Seth's Daily Podcast to listen. Justin with Talk Junkie, Goose, Dirty Dan over at Reader Chew Bubblegum, and of course the Spooky Family podcast. Go give them a listen. Check us all out. Please like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube page. It helps more than you know. Hit the notification bell so you know when we got a new episode coming out. Now, guys, like I said, we usually try to do one episode at the beginning of the week. Unfortunately, schedules happen. We will try to do a new episode every week. It may not be Sunday or Monday. I'm sorry. We'll try to do it the best we can. Probably try to start doing it earlier in the week, but we're going to try to do one every week. But I think that'll do it. If you have your own, don't forget about our contest. I'm sorry. It ends on the first of the year, midnight on December 31st. Send us your scary stories, your odd stories, your weird stories, something that happened to you, UFOs, Bigfoots, ghosts, whatever. Let us know. Enter that at paranormaltrucker@yahoo.com. You have to be subscribed and liked our page to be entered. Other than that, guys, I think we're going to call it a night. Have a good one and keep it between the lines.
Bye.
And tell them Large Marge sent you.